Thank you all very much. Thank you. That's just wonderful. And thank you, Valerie. That was a very kind introduction. I appreciate that. I'll try not to bore you with my own introductions because we want to move along, but I do have some introductions to make. I'm joined today by several very special people, one of whom is my wife, who, before you applaud, my wife is, we're expecting our fourth child in about 3 weeks. And you think, oh, 3 weeks, that's right around the corner. Well, you've obviously never been a pregnant woman, if you think that. But my wife is here. You may wonder, why would you bring your wife to an event like this when she's going to give birth at any moment? But I figured, well, the country's best-known obstetrician is standing by if anything should happen. I'm also joined today by my mother, who's in town, right? Here she is in the second row. See, I get to embarrass her after she's spent her whole life embarrassing me. No, that's just a joke. That's a joke. She's a wonderful and extremely supportive mother. Bought me this tie, as a matter of fact. And I also have my 3 little girls, oldest of whom is 6 1/2. I've got Regina and Veronica and Amy. They're all here with me. So, wonderful. And of course, needless to say, they are all being appropriately propagandized in the household. All right, well, let's run along here. Tomorrow at the training session that Matt mentioned, I'm going to be speaking on economic topics. And in particular, my topic is going to be the issue that I think a lot of us have to deal with when we're talking about the Federal Reserve. A lot of times people will say to you, well, in the 19th century, didn't we have booms and busts and bank panics, and doesn't that show that we need the Federal Reserve? And I think sometimes people feel a little intimidated by this argument. They want to run away when this argument comes up. But to the contrary, I want you guys, when you hear this argument coming, I want you to be licking your chops, baby, because they're just walking right into your trap. So I hope I'll be able to give you some useful information on that tomorrow. And some of that is in my book, Meltdown, but not all of it, so we'll be talking about that tomorrow. And I do want to thank you guys. I mean, last year I had a very nice year because you guys came and supported me when I wrote Meltdown. We were trying to get the Austrian understanding of what's going on in the economy out before the public so that it would be marginally harder for them to get away with the propaganda that this all happened because we're too free and our wise overlords don't have enough power. And you guys supported me on that, and I'm extremely humbled, and I appreciate it very much. And it also helped that it had a foreword by Ron Paul. So I think that also helped a bit. But thank you guys, really. I'm seriously humbled by your support for me. But what I want to do tonight is talk about something a little bit different. Because on the one hand, I'm thrilled that suddenly the Federal Reserve System is like a topic you can talk about now in public. Right? People talk about it, and it's sort of taken for granted that, some people are against the Federal Reserve, and this has become part of the landscape. I mean, none of us could have predicted this. Well, now another thing is becoming slowly but surely part of the landscape that never in a million years would I have guessed would happen. And that's the idea of state nullification of unconstitutional federal laws. Now, I am shocked that this thing is taking off. I'll define it in a minute, but I've been writing and speaking about this for years. No one listens, right? It just goes on and on, just speak and write and nothing happens. And then all of a sudden, bang, it just starts happening. I mean, we've got all sorts of things going on around the country I'm going to talk about tonight that, as I say, it just shocks me. Now, what is this idea? Well, it was given its classic formulation by Thomas Jefferson, which I never cease to remind people of. Every time they want to say, well, that sounds like a crankish idea. Well, if you'd like to be a crank with Thomas Jefferson rather than be a mainstream guy, with Keith Olbermann, I think, the odds are pretty good with you there, But Jefferson's view was, and it's really common sense, which almost all the stuff we talk about, foreign policy, the economy, the Fed, it's really just common sense. What he's saying is, let's take the hypothetical situation that the federal government has passed an unconstitutional law. I mean, let's try to imagine this. What recourse do we have? I mean, we could vote the guys out. How's that one working? Has that strategy been working? How's that been going? Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't do it. You should try. I mean, sure, why not? Try everything. But I mean, elections don't always yield you, like the best people. It just seems to be the case. So what other things could we try? We could all sign a petition to the government. Hey, please stop oppressing us. Yeah, we could do that. But Jefferson was unimpressed by these alternatives. Jefferson said, well, let's see. If a law is unconstitutional, then it's no law at all. So therefore, we shouldn't enforce it. Simple, right? Why is that controversial? What in the world is controversial about that? I mean, this is the type of environment we're in right now where that would be controversial is what's strange, not the idea of nullification itself. And Jefferson's argument was that the states, after all, created the federal government. Okay, the states came first, then you had the federal government. It's like the bride and groom come first, then you have the marriage. You don't have the marriage, and then the marriage creates the bride and groom. But that's what the alternative view is, that the federal government created the states. No, it didn't. The states created the federal government, and they gave it the powers that it has. And so Frankenstein's monster does not have more power than Frankenstein. He is the creature. The Frankenstein scientist is the creator. The states are the creators of the federal government. So they ought to have a little say on, what powers they granted to the federal government. And Jefferson's concern was, if we say that the federal government has a monopoly on interpreting the Constitution, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, this is not brain surgery. If they have a monopoly on interpreting the Constitution, they're going to interpret it in their own favor. Surprise, big surprise. And then we all scratch our heads. Gee, why has the government gotten completely out of control? I just don't understand it. So this is what Jefferson warned us about, and he equipped us with the idea of nullification. In 1798, we got the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions of that year that made clear that the states retained this power to judge for themselves of the constitutionality of federal laws and to reserve the right to refuse to enforce them if they went beyond the federal government's delegated powers. Now, these documents from 1798 in the 20th century were hardly referred to at all. I mean, in 1998, when we had the 200th anniversary, I don't recall Bill Clinton having a big celebration. It's the 200th anniversary of the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. You could hear crickets, right? There was no response at all. But yet, one thing I'll say, well, I can say a lot of things about Campaign for Liberty, but the relevant one right now is that Campaign for Liberty's pocket constitution is the only pocket constitution I've ever seen that also contains the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions of 1798. So that we are to understand this Constitution in light of that.